sensors on your head.
So we're speaking right now about putting sensors on the youth, on the kids. We
Yeah.
can do that.
So it looks like this. Remember when you came in?
Right.
You came in and you wanted to see what your brain was doing.
Right.
So this is electrical information. I showed you those brain waves. Your brain is structural, it's electrical, and it's chemical. We're looking at the electrical activity of the brain.
So this is not just for performance. This is something that carries on off the field.
Absolutely. Basically, whatever it is that you might want to do better,
Right.
we take a look at it. We map it out. There's neurophysiological underpinnings of behaviors and performance, whether you want to do something better or you want to not do something that's getting in your way, like kids who are having behavior troubles, or maybe it's just kids about increasing their performance. Well, what do you need for good performance? You need focus, right? Motivation, drive, discipline. All that happens in the brain. I started out looking at brains because I was a health educator, and people know about how to be healthy, but do they do it? Do they eat right? Do they exercise? Do they do that stuff? Your kids that you're coaching, you teach them stuff, but some of them do well, and some of them know what to do, but do they do it?
Sometimes they just take the information differently, right? Or it's whatever to what they believe will help them and what they believe won't help them. So they're making the decisions on their own, which is really hard at that age.
Absolutely. Decisions and focus. That's stuff that happens in your frontal cortex. Your frontal cortex is where focus, judgment, impulse control, forethought, decision making, planning, judgment happens in the frontal cortex. Now, if a kid is struggling with that, be it in school, at home, making bad decisions, or focus, sometimes it's over-focused. You ever have that kid and they're over-focused? They need to be right here, but they're over-focused on this other kid over here, or something off the field, or out chasing butterflies. Hey, come back over here.
Yeah.
So focus is really huge. You're an athlete, you've heard of that term, the zone.
Right.
Well, the zone actually happens between 12 and 15 cycles per second. We can measure it and we can train it. It's actually operant conditioning of brain waves. First we want to see what's going on, we map it out. This is an EEG cap. It has 19 sensors that are going to measure the electrical activity at your scalp, most of which is indicative of what's coming off the surface or the cortex of your brain. I showed you this brain wave, the brain waves on the screen. So then we look at it. It's not just diagnostic. We don't just look at the squiggly lines, but we actually can quantify it and map it out. And each one of these sensors measures an area about the size of a silver dollar. Well, you've got more than 100 billion neurons in your brain and more connections than stars in the universe. There's a lot of electrical activity in there. The computer figures it all out, maps it out from slow all the way to fast. You've got different speeds of brain waves that are associated with different states of consciousness and task at hand. Similar to a car. Cars are measured their powers in RPMs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have first gear, second gear, third gear. You need them all, right? Depending on what kind of terrain and what kind of road and what task, if you're idling or you're trying to get out of the way. Same thing with brains. You have different speeds of brain waves in different areas of your brain associated with different tasks or things that you need to do or states of consciousness. So we map it all out. And most of the time, we can find if somebody's struggling with performance or learning or focus or relaxing, we can map that out in the brain and figure out what might be going too slow or too fast or what might be disconnected. Do you ever hear that saying, use your whole brain?
Right. No, sometimes it's like they don't know why they're doing this drill and how this drill compares to the bigger picture of soccer. And some of them are still in the learning process, but if they're able to understand this drill translates to this part of the game, so then they can actually apply it, right? Mm-hmm. And my other question is, can this be helpful for the kids for the parents to understand where their stressors are, right? Even if it's on the field, or after the game. If my parents telling me this is how it's making me feel. So I'd rather you not tell me these things, so then my, I guess, my feelings aren't hurt, or
Absolutely.
you're perhaps, instead of you giving me negative feedback, this is the feedback that is going to allow me to be successful. Not just,
Absolutely. And remember when you were here earlier with one of your family members and I had you guys hooked up,
right?
and just the way you say a thing or talk about a thing, you can
You
not just,
change
we
it.
don't just look at brains, but we look at muscle tension and we look at breathing and we look at heart rate, skin conductance, have the level of moisture on the palm of your hands, you know, sweaty palms, cold feet. I resonate with that thing. I have that feeling in my gut, in my heart. We can measure all that. That stuff is real. So we can actually measure it and we can train it. And you can sit with somebody and see how is it that I can get through to that person,
Right.
even as a coach, knowing how is it I can get through to that kid or change it, because it could be the same thing, but about the way they interpret it, the way they hear it.
I hear you, right? Everyone takes the information differently. But I only have so many hours, or I only have so much time with them, and the rest of the time they're spending it at home with people that may not be able to give them that feedback that they're receiving on the field. So how can I translate what's happening with them on the field and then take it home so they can so the parents can understand this is what's going to work for them.
So
Talking
that's,
to them like this won't help them.
absolutely. So that's where between the parent and the coach, they can have the kid come in and work with me.
Mm-hmm.
I figure out what makes that kid tick.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy. Now, I'm not a psychologist. I have training in sports psychology. I've worked in peak performance with NFL professionals and worked to be that interface and an assistant. Think of me, I'm the physiology coach.
Right.
So my background is physical education and health promotions and also radiology, neuroimaging. Put all that together, we can measure that stuff, figure out how that kid is wired and what makes him tick.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can meet with a receptive coach or parent and say, okay, based on how little Johnny is wired, this is how you can get through to him. And I'll give Johnny some skills and drills to take out to the field. I'm more than willing to go out to the field, and I think that's awesome that you're open-minded to having me come out and help give the kids some drills and work with them. And then even once again, work with individuals and work with the parents. And how can we help Johnny be the best athlete and the best student he could be?
Right. Oh, I love
Absolutely. So, and it takes the stigma out of struggles and learning differences, because we can actually map it out. It's about how people are wired. So we just retrain it, and this is actually just operant conditioning. You put a sensor on brainwave activity or any kind of physiological autonomic nervous system measure like heart rate, breathing, skin conductance,
Right.
and you put a sensor on it, feed it back on the screen, and tell them how you figured out where you were holding muscle tension,
Right.
and learned where you were holding it, what it looks like, and how to let it go in about 2 minutes, right?
Yeah, no, it helps me as a coach too and as a mentor, because then I know how I can get through to them, right? I know how to speak to that specific person, and I feel as if, you're in a position, as a coach and a mentor, you're in a position that holds a lot of responsibility. So I'm responsible for their well-being. I might as well be able to give them the best tools in order for them to be successful, right? I'm not only talking about how they can play. I'm trying to figure out how their progress is going internally.
Absolutely. Getting their head in the game.
Yeah.
The mind is so important. You can be the most amazing athlete, but if your head is not in the game, what happens?
Yeah, we're not gonna be successful.
Right.
As successful as we can be, because there are players out there that are playing with half their brain and they're really good.
And being present.
Yeah.
If you can be 100%, do your best, 100% of your best, and be present, you're going to be able to do anything better.
Yeah, love that. And where can we find us? Please tell us. Where can we find you? And this is completely healthy for young kids. This is completely healthy for the teenagers. This is completely healthy for adults. So,
and even the aging population. Anybody struggling with cognitive decline, we can measure it out. We can help people to be better whatever it is that they need to do, thinking better, remembering. If you're struggling, if you've had head injuries, been in a car accident, aging, memory loss is not a normal part of aging. So it's basically the youngest person I ever worked with was 2 years old, and the oldest one was 91. Somebody who had had a stroke got him his function back.
And the educational part too,
Yes.
because parents are also concerned about how my child is learning, right? How can I help them
Right. So
achieve their goals in the classroom?
learning struggles have neurophysiological underpinnings, and we can actually measure that by mapping out the brain. And with operant conditioning of the brainwaves, basically it's a brain-computer-brain interface. The person has sensors on their head. We feed it back. Basically, if you put a sensor on a thing, feed it back on a screen, measure it, feed it back on a screen, you can train it. It's really that simple. It's operant conditioning of biological signals that previously was the autonomic nervous system. You can't control it. You actually can. If you can measure it and feed it back on a screen, you can control it. And we do that by showing them what's going on. Here's what we're training. This is how it applies to you and life and your sport or your learning or whatever it is. And okay, now here's what we're doing. Okay, here's the goal. And that's my job, to program the settings for that person. And then all they do is sit and they watch. You can watch a video, you can watch a game, I can put a dimmer on the screen and make it fun, but there's no remote control. The remote control is your brain or your breathing, or in muscle tension in your case, and you watch that on the screen. When it starts changing, you're a coach shaping behaviors, right? Give them a little goal, actually, then boom, within milliseconds, the screen will go, the game will go, the sound will go, the brightness.
And where can we find you?
Okay, so I am at Cure Malibu Med Spa, Cure Malibu.
Say it again.
2291 Cure Malibu, 22917 Pacific Coast Highway, right across the street from the lovely Malibu Pier, with the best view on the planet here, the Pacific Ocean. Sometimes you can even see dolphins.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming in.